There we go. Video and audio seems to be working. Ms. Williams, do we have all of council in at this point?
I am just double checking to make sure we haven't lost anybody. No, we are missing. Here comes Councillor Zilka. And I'm looking for Councillor Ney as well.
Okay.
Testing.
We can hear you, Councillor Zilka. Thank you. For those of you who are watching us either on Zoom right now or live streaming online, we are about to start the council meeting of May 25th. We are at this point just waiting for the usual minor technical issues, just getting the last of the councillors up and connected with good audio. And once we have that, we will call the meeting to order and begin. In the meantime, please just stand by. If you wish to join us for any of the sessions that have public input, you are more than welcome to do so. The dial-in information, toll-free number is at the top of the meeting ID with the meeting ID and passcode. So feel free to call in or join us through the Zoom as well. At this point, we are, I think, still waiting for one more councillor to join us.
I've just resent the invitation to Councillor Ney.
Great, thank you very much. I will just, since we have a second as we're waiting, I hope everybody had a chance to see the summary of the announcement from the province today. It was really nice to actually have a little glimmer of light at the end of this tunnel. I think the hard part is going to be throwing off the shackles too quickly and just run out and hugging everybody. But it was a nice announcement. I thought very tempered and appropriate, and but nice to see restaurants able to open again and a little bit back to a sense of a little bit more normal. And certainly hoping to see it get back there by the end of the summer. It looks like that's the goal. If anybody's watching and hasn't signed up for their shots, please do, because that would be it helps us all get back to a state of normal sooner. I sometimes wonder if Zoom has some sort of algorithm where they just sort of randomly pick one attendee and just makes it difficult to get in, so that we spend more time on their app all the time.
I've just sent Councillor Ney the meeting ID and password, so I'm hoping that will help.
Okay. I can certainly see everybody else quite clearly, so that's good. I noticed, Ms. Williams, we have a new disclaimer popping up, letting people know that they will be recorded on this call. Is that a requirement under the? I know it says recording at the top there, but is it a requirement for us to do that, or just something we wanted to do to make sure people were clear that these were being live streamed and recorded when they signed in?
That's a really good question, Your Worship. I saw it for the first time myself as well coming into this meeting, so I'm
Okay.
sensing it was probably a Zoom update that changed that.
Very good. Well, it makes sense. Not that most of us forget, but it's always good to remind us that that's the case. So we are just about ready to go here. It looks like we have all of council here. So with that, I'm ready to call the meeting to order. This is a regular council meeting scheduled for our May 25th, or a Tuesday, not a Monday because of the holiday Monday. So as we call the meeting to order, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that the land on which we're all seated at this time is the traditional territories of the Coast and Strait Salish peoples, specifically the Lekwungen speaking people known today as the Songhees and the Esquimalt First Nations, and that our connections to these lands continue to this day. Up first, we have approval of the agenda. I just see moved and seconded. Any changes or questions on the agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Not opposed. We have adoption of minutes from the May 10th meeting. Moved and second. Is there a hand for seconder? Thank you. Moved and seconded. Any discussions or corrections on those minutes? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Next is receipt of minutes from other committees. So Committee of the Whole, April 19, a motion to receive. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Go ahead, Councillor Zelka.
Thank you very much, Chair. I noticed that in the Committee of the Whole, sometimes there are motions to directing staff to do certain things. Do those action initiating things come to council, or by our accepting the minutes here, does that basically authorize it to just proceed? Like, how does that work?
It's a great question, and I'm glad you asked it because it's subject to confusion as it's changed. And Ms. Williams, you jump in here and correct me if I'm wrong on this one. It used to be that they would be adopted at the time of adoption of the minutes, but that was deemed to be a little unclear that you were actually taking action just by receiving or approving the minutes. So now all of those come the next meeting as recommendations, and we actually move and vote on them as a council following those meetings. So the minutes here really are just minutes, and the motions are actually motions brought at this table. Ms. Williams, did I do anything wrong there?
No, Your Worship, you knocked that one right out of the ballpark.
Okay. Thank you so much for the clarity. Appreciate it.
No, it's great. It's great. It's probably worth asking that question a few more times through this year as we get used to the new procedures bylaw. All right, we have a motion for receipt on the table. Is there any other discussion or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Again, move receipt for the Advisory Planning Commission for January 7th, 2020. Moved and seconded. And for those following at home, you'll see that the next two are quite a long time ago, and that was just the committees didn't meet for a long time until they reformed. So that's why we're getting to some of these late now. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. And then receipt of March 10th Public Art Advisory Committee. Okay, get a moved, and is there a seconder? Seconded. Thank you. Any discussions? All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. That carries. And last but not least, we have the Public Arts Advisory Committee from October 14th, 2020. Is there a move receipt? Thank you. And a seconder? Just need a hand. So it's official. Thank you. Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. That carries. We have mayor's remarks up next, and I usually quite brief in my mayor's remarks, but there's a lot going on, so I'll try and be as quick as I can, but there's a few things to cover. Definitely very pleased to see we're starting to enter phase one of the restart plan, and nice to see the thing. I'd just like to take a moment. It's been a while. It's been a bit of a hard few months as we've gone through the third wave, and I just want to thank everybody in the community who's done what they're supposed to do, plus a little bit more for the most part, and I've really kept this community very safe overall for everyone. So we still have a lot of work to do. We're not entirely free yet, but the light's at the end of the tunnel, and certainly encourage everybody to get their immunization shots if they haven't done so already. Wanted to give a quick update. As all of the people in this room know, about 2 weeks ago, Council agreed to implement a temporary and partial closure of the Esplanade to allow for better physical distancing. This really for the pedestrians down there during that the sort of the end of the wave. That was intentionally temporary in nature, and so we put a closure on that it would end automatically no matter what when restaurants reopen. So that happened at 1 o'clock today. So just so everybody knows that Esplanade is those temporary closure signs came down. Those local access only signs came down just about the same time as the announcement. Want to remind anybody watching that the homeowner grants and tax notices are out now and should be submitted. Also wanted to let people know that we've had 580 responses already on the secondary suite survey. So really appreciate everybody amplifying that and getting the word out. It is open until June 3rd. So if you haven't, please do submit a response. Also got an update from the Emergency Operations Center this week. Again, a good reminder that we're still in a public state of emergency, have been for over a year now. It's ongoing. We have an obligation to keep up public health best practices in the next few months. They've undertaken over 500 change order models within that. So it's been a pretty busy Emergency Operations Center, even where we see mostly calm on the outside. There's lots of work going behind the scenes to keep our services going. Also, we'll let people update know on the renovations at the hall. We're targeting the end of August to be completely complete and fully open to the public. Of course, open to the public is subject to public health orders, but that is the plan. One of the things that you will discover when you go in there, I'll give a little sneak peek. There used to be more windows in there, and they've uncovered them as they've done the work, and so it'll be quite a bit more natural light in those offices just by the nature of reopening up some of those windows that were closed off in some prior renovation. I also want to just wish the Penny Farthing a happy 20th birthday. 20 years ago today, on a Friday night at 5 o'clock, the Penny Farthing opened. It's become quite a cornerstone in the community and over the last couple of decades. So since they can't have big celebrations or anything, I thought I'd just wish them a happy birthday today. And last but definitely not least, we have the Hallmark Awards are happening as we speak. As we meet, Hallmark Awards is on. Hallmark Awards are on, and there's two projects in Oak Bay that won awards this year, and really well deserved. The first was the Prospect, which is the heritage conservation area that this council actually formalized and approved as under bylaw and changes to the OCP that helps protect and document the historical significance of a very important area around Rattenbury's original home. And the second is an informational tribute that's installed in Queen's Park, which highlights the work of James Fenwick Lansdowne, who's a globally acclaimed painter and naturalist, and really a community-led project that has helped highlight that history here in Oak Bay. So very appreciative of the work that went into those projects. Many people, volunteers in the community's work, and both very well-deserved winners tonight. So sorry I can't be there to be there in support, but thought I'd at least mention it here in the council meeting. So up and into the council business, we have item 6.1, grant and aid awards. So we have the items in the order that they're here, but I think the simplest thing to do is if we have one councillor, I think it's just one councillor wishes to recuse for a couple of items. That's Councillor Braithwaite for the Victoria Festival Society and the Vancouver Island South Film and Media Commission. We'll have you leave the meeting and then call you back. And what we'll do is we'll just go through the councillors to input their numbers for that piece. If there's any, I think it's reasonable for council to ask questions at that point. If there's any, if somebody gives a 0 or somebody gives twice the asked amount, it's reasonable for council to ask each other why they came to that conclusion. We'll try and finalize those as much as we can, and then we'll let Councillor Braithwaite come back into the room, and then we'll go through the balance of them in order. So with that, Councillor Braithwaite, I need you to just state for the record that you are recusing yourself and the reason why. I'll have you sign out, and then we'll text you to come back in as soon as we're done.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I am recusing myself for the two items that you said. One was the Film Commission, which I sit on the Board of Directors, and the other is the Festival Society, of which I am a member. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Braithwaite. And Councillor Zelka?
Thank you. I will have to recuse myself with respect to the Sea Rescue Society. Apparently they have an association with Emergency Management British Columbia. I work in Emergency Management British Columbia, and I was not aware of that until they made their presentation. Okay, no problem. What we will do is we will deal with these two items, and then I will go through the same process, just ask you to recuse yourself for that. We'll deal with that one. We'll invite you back, and then we'll deal with the rest as a block going through them all. Thank you. Do you need me to step out now? No, please stay here for now because you're not recusing yourself for the first two items. Thank you. So the process here is just that individual councillors will read out the amount that they've selected for these two items. It'll be a little bit of a dry run for us. So
what's the simplest way of doing this in a cohesive way so we don't get, I think we'll just go in alphabetical order of last name, which should be Appleton, Braithwaite, Green, Ney, Patterson, and then Zelka, and then I'll go last. Yeah, actually I'll put myself in there as well. Just there's nothing special about my reading out. And thank you, Mr. Payne, for putting it up there. So for the two items that for which Councillor Braithwaite recused herself, the Greater Victoria Festival Society. First, can I get, I'm just going to ask in order. So Councillor Appleton, what was your number?
Okay, sorry, Your Worship. We're starting with the Festival Society.
Yes, Greater Victoria Festival Society. Sorry, it's about 6 down.
Yes, so the full ask, $2,000 for me.
Okay, thank you. And sorry, then I have Councillor Braithwaite is recused. Councillor Green.
Yes, I put 0 for that ask.
Okay.
And I'll explain if you like.
I think you should. Anytime we have a 0 or something outside of the ask, go ahead.
Yeah, the reason being, as BIA liaison, and we have our own lighting festival at Christmas time and other events, we've taken a real hit. The BIA has taken a real hit this year. I think if there are any surplus funds, it would be wonderful to go to the BIA to support our local businesses. And that's why I've voted the way I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Then I have myself. I have the full amount, 2,000. Then I have Ney.
2,000. Can you hear me? Yeah.
I can, yep. We'll probably just leave our mics unmuted at this point and try and be quiet in the background so we can go through this quickly. Patterson?
I have to get unmuted here, and it's on a different place in the last screen. But I had $500. If you would like me to explain,
Sure.
I'm happy to do that. When I looked at what it funded, there was a performance in May and then a December light up the city. I believe one of those will not have happened. So I thought there would be a reduced need for that funding. And the December light up, I thought, for the same reason as Councillor Green stated, that our BIA is involved in that, and that if there was any surplus funding, we could handle it through our own BIA and support them in that way. So that was my rationale.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Just for clarity, for everybody, the light up they do is basically the home light up, not the business light up, but point taken. Councillor Zelka.
2,000.
Okay, thank you. Then we have the Vancouver Island South Film and Media Commission, which is third from the last. If I can go again in alphabetical order, Appleton.
10,000.
Then Braithwaite's recused. Councillor Green.
10,000.
All right, I'm next. 10,000. Councillor Ney.
10,000.
Councillor Patterson.
10,000.
And Councillor Zelka.
10,000.
Okay, thank you very much. And you're just putting an R or something in that so that the average works out. You got it all worked out in some formula anyway, so we'll go there. Then, so can I just get Councillor Braithwaite to come back in, and Councillor Zelka, would you just again just state for the record that you're recusing yourself, why, and then if you can just log out, we'll text you to come back in.
Thank you. I'd like to recuse myself with respect to the Oak Bay Sea Rescue Society. I understand they have an MOU of some sort with Emergency Management British Columbia. And so I feel in conflict of interest with respect to any monies that I may be affording them because I work at Emergency Management British Columbia.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Councillor Zelka. We'll have you back in here in just a moment.
All right. Thank you.
And we're just waiting for Councillor Braithwaite to come back in. This is one reason that meetings take a little longer than normal, is the cumbersomeness of this sort of thing. Come on, technology, you can do it. This is odd. Ms. Williams, has someone texted Councillor Braithwaite?
Yes, she's just coming back in now, your worship.
Okay, great.
There she is.
Great. There she is. Welcome back, Councillor Braithwaite. Councillor Zelka has recused himself on the item on the Oak Bay Sea Rescue. So we're just going to go through our list in the alphabetical order. So it goes Appleton, Braithwaite, Green, Murdoch, Ney, Patterson, Zelka. We're just reading out the numbers assigned to that particular item first. So it's 6 from the bottom, Oak Bay Sea Rescue Society. We're going to do that one. And then we'll invite Councillor Zelka back in the room and we'll go through the rest of the items. So up first, we have Councillor Appleton for Oak Bay Sea Rescue Society.
5,200, your worship.
And then Braithwaite.
5,200.
Then Green.
5,200, sorry.
Thank you. No worries. Myself, 5,200. Councillor Ney.
52.
Councillor Patterson.
5,200.
And Councillor Zelka. Oh, Councillor Zelka has recused himself. Silly me. And we will, so that's been completed. Can we just text Councillor Zelka to come back into the meeting?
We've just messaged him, your worship.
Thank you. I'm hoping he didn't go too far. I think he had to know that wouldn't take very long. Though it's amazing how the technology glitches seem to pop up when you're in a hurry as opposed to when you have lots of time to deal with them.
Councillor Zelka is back in the meeting.
Great, thank you very much. Welcome back, Councillor Zelka. We are going to go through the rest of the items here in the order that they're in the report. I don't see Councillor Zelka, so I just want to make sure that he's fully back in the meeting.
I can see you.
Great, there you are. I think because you hadn't spoken yet, you're probably still down at the bottom of the page or something. So Bike Victoria Society. If I can go through the list again, Councillor Appleton.
2,500.
Thank you. Councillor Braithwaite.
2,000.
Councillor Green.
1,800.
Murdoch was 1,800. And Ney.
2,500.
And Patterson.
1,500.
And Zelka.
$0, and I can explain if you like.
I think you should.
That's fine. I found their balance sheet in excellent shape. They've obviously done quite well during the pandemic, and I also felt uncomfortable with the political lobbying aspects of some of their work, and it also seems they're very heavy on the staff and very little on actual spending on bike stuff. So those are some of my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Zelka. Then we have Community Association of Oak Bay. Councillor Appleton.
2,000, your worship.
Thank you. Councillor Braithwaite.
1,500.
Councillor Green.
2,000.
Councillor Murdoch, I had 1,500. Ney.
2,000.
Patterson. Oh,
Can't
muted
unmute.
again.
Yeah, no, I just wouldn't unmute there. I guess I've got to be faster on it. At 2,000.
Okay, and Zelka.
If it's the AOB, 2,000.
Okay. We have the Fed Urban Agricultural Society. Councillor Appleton.
2,000.
Councillor Braithwaite.
500.
Councillor Green.
500.
Murdoch, 500. Ney.
2,000.
Patterson.
500.
Zelka.
1,000.
Friends of Boker Creek. Councillor Appleton,
2,500.
Braithwaite,
500.
Green,
500.
Murdoch. I had them at 0. I'm just going to say for the reasons here, it was just because this is for a concert on the banks, and I just have a sneaking suspicion that that money is not going to be usable in the large gathering, and could be better used for actually doing some of the restoration work in Bowker Creek. Go then nay,
25.
and Patterson,
0, basically, Mayor, for the same reasons as you've just stated. It's for one concert, and I didn't know that it was viable for this season.
and Zelka.
1,500.
Okay, thank you. We have Friends of Uplands Park, Appleton,
2,500.
Braithwaite,
3,500. I need to explain. I know
I think
it's
you
more than they
should.
asked for. I think that every year they come to us with a very low ask for the amount of work that they actually do within the community. And I just felt that if we could give them a little bit more of a hand up this year, that might really help them for either, whether it's to buy more equipment or whatever it is. But for the number of hours of volunteerism we get out of them, I just think it's important to give them more money.
Thank you, Councillor Braithwaite. Councillor Green,
I also have 3,000, and for very similar reasons. I think they provide an incredible service, caretaking service to our community, and they protect that park and also utilize their monies so wisely. So they're great value for the money, honestly.
okay, Murdoch is 2,500. I'm not sure I appreciate people trying to guilt me into giving the full amount that was asked for, but you know. Councillor Nay,
25.
Councillor Patterson, Councillor Patterson,
Yes, Mayor, I also had 3,000. They have been doing an incredible job. Margaret King Group have been doing an incredible job during pandemic with activities. And I mean, it's just astounding for people that go through Uplands Park this year and on the other parks. So I think this is a nice little boost, and I'm glad to see others who are of the same opinion. So,
Councillor Zelka.
3,500. Thank you, everyone, for letting me know we could go above the limit.
All right, we're on to Greater Victoria Festival Society. We've already done that one. Junior Achievement British Columbia. Councillor Appleton.
0, Your Worship.
Councillor Braithwaite. Do you want? You can give a reason if you wish.
Thank you, Your Worship. Although the program proposed seems laudable and seems to have an effect, I'm looking at an organization with, well over $1 million in revenue showing, and almost $1 million worth of staff time versus salary time on it. So although I think that the program content is good, I see an organization that seems to be in a pretty solid financial position and would rather the funds go towards community groups in Oak Bay.
Thank you, Councillor Appleton. Councillor Braithwaite.
I'll just say ditto on exactly what Councillor Appleton said.
Thanks, Councillor Green.
I will say the same, 0.
Okay, Murdoch was 0, nay.
Same.
Patterson.
same for me, 0.
Zelka.
500.
Okay, and Leadership Victoria Society. Councillor Appleton.
1,000.
Councillor Braithwaite.
1,000.
Councillor Green.
1,000.
I had 500. Then nay.
1,000.
Patterson
500.
and Zelka.
2,000.
Okay, do you want to explain the 2,000, Councillor Zelka?
Yeah, it puts the average right at 1,000.
Okay. Guess the benefits of going last. If you could just put down what you value, I think that the intention here is not to swing it.
Leadership Victoria does yeoman's work. Absolutely amazing. The impact they have on the wider community and on Oak Bay is sometimes too much behind the scenes. They need to be more well known. They do fabulous work. Okay. So anything that can support them, I think it will benefit us. Thank you.
But you'd like it to be 2,000, just for clear?
2,000.
Maritime Museum of BC, Councillor Appleton.
1,500, Your Worship.
Then I have, sorry, I just changed pages where I didn't have my little list here. Councillor Braithwaite,
2,000.
Green.
2,000.
Murdoch, I had 1,500. Nay.
15.
Patterson
15.
and Zelka.
2,000.
Oak Bay Heritage Foundation, Councillor Appleton.
3,000.
Braithwaite,
3,000.
Green.
3,500.
Murdoch was 4,000. And I'm just going to put this in here that I do believe that there's going to be a significant drawdown on some of the heritage projects coming up. And while they've kept this number the same, the grants, I believe, should be increased over time. And so I thought it's a good year, this particular year, to add to it, just because we have less demand on our granting process. Councillor Nay.
Yeah, I think it says 4, but yeah, they're fixing it. Okay, so yeah, 3.
And Patterson,
I said 3,500.
and then Zelka.
3,500 is fine.
Then Oak Bay High School Alumni Association, Councillor Appleton.
2,000.
Councillor Braithwaite,
2,000.
Councillor Green,
1,000.
Councillor Murdoch is 2,000. Nay.
2.
Patterson
1,000.
and Zelka.
2,000.
Thank you, everybody. Oak Bay Lawn Bowling Club, Councillor Appleton,
5,000.
Councillor Braithwaite,
3,500.
Councillor Green.
Just a sec. Sorry, I'm just 5,000.
Thank you. Murdoch, I had 4,000. Nay.
4.
Patterson
5,000.
and Zelka.
5,000.
Great, thank you. Oak Bay Sea Rescue Society, we've already dealt with. Peninsula Streams, Appleton,
1,500.
Braithwaite,
500.
Green,
1,500.
Murdoch, 1,500. Nay.
1,500.
Patterson
1,500.
and Zelka.
1,500.
Thank you. St. John Society, Councillor Appleton.
1,000.
Thank you. Councillor Braithwaite,
1,700.
Councillor Green.
1,700.
Murdoch is 1,000. Nay.
1,700.
Patterson
1,700.
and Zelka.
1,700.
Great, thank you, everyone. We've already dealt with Vancouver Island South Film and Media Commission. Victoria Sexual Assault Center, Councillor Appleton.
5,000.
Braithwaite,
5,000.
Green,
5,000.
Murdoch, 3,000. And I'm putting that there just because we've consistently asked that they find consistent funding from the province. And I'm hoping that we can wean this number down, but I don't want that to be reflected as any kind of lack of support for the organization. Councillor Nay,
5,000.
Councillor Patterson,
5,000.
Councillor Zelka.
3,000 for similar reasons.
Thank you. And last on this list is Victoria Women's Transition House. I have Councillor Appleton,
2,500.
Councillor Braithwaite,
2,500.
Councillor Green,
2,500.
Councillor Murdoch is 2,000. Nay.
2,500.
Patterson
2,500.
and Zelka.
2,500.
Thank you. So that concludes that piece. This is a chance, everybody's had now a chance to hear everybody's numbers going in and the rationale for anything that that jumped out, up or down. Anybody wish to change any of their numbers on anything? I'm just going to change mine on the last one for the Women's Transition House to 25. I do think this is one that we've struggled with over the years. It's not municipal. And it shouldn't be municipal, and they should not be trying to depend on having to depend on us for funding. That's also a significant increase from previous year. but it's also a special year, I think, where there's special need. So I think it's reasonable, but I think we have to also be careful not to end up spending our entire budget on things that are provincially, that should be provincially funded, because it's a very big pit of money. So happy to change that to 2,500. Anything else anybody else wishes to change? Go ahead, Councillor Green.
I don't want to change anything, but I do want to speak to your comments now about those two organizations in particular, the Transition House and the Victoria Sexual Assault Center. I personally don't think it's a good argument to say that they should be getting their funding from the province. Frankly, whatever we can do as a local government and whatever we can do as a community to support these two groups. And I don't think it should be viewed as a liability that they haven't sought the province's help. In fact, we have many Oak Bay residents living here who benefit from these services and programs. And I know for a fact that over the last year and a half, almost, women in particular in all of our communities have suffered inordinately during the pandemic, both from domestic violence and then from other issues around their living arrangements. So I really don't, I guess personally, I have to say, I don't like to hear us say something like that. I think it's really important that we recognize there's a need. If we can help them now, we should. And I'm not going to worry about whether it's provincial or local. I think it's help, and it means a lot. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Councillor Braithwaite.
Thank you, Mayor. And just going on something that you mentioned when we were giving the numbers for the Heritage Committee, and you said that they might be leaned on a little bit more heavily this year. And so I'm just wanting to just to clarify that they could come back to us if they needed to for extra funding, if there was money still in the pot. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct. This actually is not intended to provide just 1 year's funding. It's a kitty essentially that's supposed to average amount over the years.
Okay.
So it's just we've kept that number. It's dropped from 5,000 to 3,000 over the years. But I think just this year, just looking at the asks that we have, they're not as high. And so if there's ever a year to top up their kitty a little bit, this seemed like a logical one. But it's not a big difference, obviously, one way or the other.
So then I would actually like to change mine. From, I believe I said 3,000. I would like to change it to 4,000.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to change any? Not seeing any hands up. Any other? So what in terms of voting on this, we're going to, I think, vote in the block first. And well, actually, maybe we should. What we'll do is probably do the recused ones first. I'll vote on those. I'm not going to ask people to sign out. If I could just get you to walk away for 1 minute, and then I'll do the procedural pieces of calling the question. Thank you, Councillor Braithwaite has stepped away, recusing for the same reasons as last time. We'll just make that assumption. So this would be we can do as a block for someone could move approval of the amount for Greater Victoria Festival Society and the Vancouver Island South Film and Media Commission.
So moved.
Moved, and is there a seconder? Moved and seconded. Any other discussion on those? All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. That carries. So Councillor Braithwaite should be back here any second. Just getting a procedural reminder here. Just hold on a second. Right. Now, Councillor Zelka, have you departed? I think he has departed. So if we can do the call on the Oak Bay Sea Rescue Society, can I get a mover and a seconder for the number there? Moved and seconded. No other discussion. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. So the rest of these, we'll wait for Councillor Zelka to come back. Then we're going to have a vote on the block, and then we'll do a vote on the Oak Bay Volunteer Society. Welcome back, Councillor Zelka. So the motion that I'm looking for is just a motion to approve the balance of those items on the sheet as they are. Moved by Councillor Braithwaite. Thank you. Is there a seconder? Seconded. Thank you. So this is everything except for the 3 items that were voted on separately as councillors who recuse themselves left. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. And then can I get a motion that the grant and aid amount of $35,000 be awarded to Oak Bay Volunteer Society? This is an annual, moved and seconded. Any discussion on that grant? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. And thank you everybody for doing your diligence and homework. There was a lot of reading material to get through in preparation for what, once again, it shows good preparation makes for a speedier meeting. So thank you for that and for your time. We have up next.
Question, if I may.
Oh, go ahead, Councillor Zelka.
Thank you. A related question through you to staff, if I may. With the monies that were not allocated with respect to the annual discretionary, what becomes of those funds?
Sure. Mr. Payne?
Your worship, generally the unallocated funds remain there. There are often ad hoc requests through the year. So if there are ad hoc requests, staff bring those to council for consideration at those times. Otherwise, they just form part of our surplus at the end of the year.
Thank you. Is that approximately $20,000 in the discretionary left over, or do we have an amount?
14,500 through your worship.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Zelka. We didn't talk much philosophy here. There's different ways of approaching this. I will say, I do think it's wise to keep some money this year of all years set aside for later in the year. If things do open up and we do have the opportunity to bring the community together again, having some funds available makes a lot of sense to be able to do that. Certainly that's the hope as we get farther on into the year. So, okay, with that, any other discussion before we move on? No, thank you very much. Item number 7.1, we have Ms. Jensen, our Manager of Planning, here to introduce development variance permit for 1069 Beach Drive. And we have I believe Mr. Collins, or it could be Ms. Scott from the Zebra Design Group as well, available to answer questions. Ms. Jensen.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just checking in that you can hear me.
We can, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So this particular property is located on the water side of Beach Drive, just across the street from the Victoria Golf Club. The house itself is the original home, which was constructed in 1912. The applicant is now proposing to undertake renovations to the home, primarily through an addition on the north side of the home and through a renovation to the upper floor. Because of the legal non-conforming status of the heights of the home, it's that interior work and that roof line that the proposed change that necessitates the request for variance. So council previously saw this site back in 2017, which was also for a height variance, again, to allow for full height ceilings within that upper story. That request was approved by council, but the renovations were never undertaken. So similarly, the new proposal would increase the pitch of the roof to also allow for full movement in that upper story, which would be accomplished through varying both the building and the roof heights of the zoning bylaw. Staff review of the application notes that the variance request will overall retain the architectural lines with a design that is in keeping with the original home. And because of the significant landscape screening and the large size of the property, the increase to the height should have minimal impact to adjacent neighbors or to the streetscape. All of the works are outside of the shoreline's development permit area, so therefore it has no impact on the shoreline itself. Staff also note that while the proposed works trigger a review as per the tree protection bylaw, no trees are being removed as a result of the work, and the site is already at 49% tree canopy cover, so it's exceeding the required 45%. Tree protection measures will still be undertaken during the construction activity. So should council wish this application to move forward, staff would proceed with written notification of the development variance application to all properties within a 50-meter radius. The proposal would then come back to a subsequent council meeting for consideration of any public input and a final resolution. And with that, staff are requesting council direction.
Great, thank you very much, Ms. Jensen. And before I just take questions, first, welcome Mr. Collins to the meeting. Also, just for clarification again, new procedures bylaw, things done slightly differently. So in an effort to focus community input down into where it's so people know where to go, that community input is welcome at the next meeting on this item. So we're going to send out a notification. We'll collect all the public input, either written or call in, and we'll have that discussion then. The point of these meetings is to review the application to see if we feel that it has merit to go forward for that public input consideration. And that, of course, is the recommended motion here, is to make that notification. So just so we're all clear, this is not, in the past, they've gone to public input sort of a couple of times in the process, and so that's not happening now. And so if and the members of the public wish to speak to it, that's the appropriate time after, because this, these applications may have some changes required and so forth before they go forward for public consideration. So sorry about that. That's more of it's a generalized piece, because it's still a fairly new procedure, and I want to make sure that people understand where we are at in this. Are there any questions of council to the staff or to Mr. Collins? I don't see any. Go ahead, Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Mayor, and I generally support what is put forward here, and I do agree with the report that I think that the changes that are recommended will actually enhance the overall look of the home. But there was a statement in here about the house currently has low ceilings and limited visibility. So I'm just curious as to what do we define as a low ceiling and what the improvement is? And it doesn't have to be, to the nth degree, just a generalization would be great, because I'd like to know what constitutes a low ceiling in this day and age. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Mr. Collins, you're probably in the best position to answer that question, and welcome.
Sure. Yeah.
If you could just state your name and your municipality of residence, or the municipality of your business.
I live and work in Oak Bay, and I'm from Zebra Design. So
welcome.
The upper floor has a low ceiling, and when I say low, it's like probably around 7 feet or lower. And so when you're standing upstairs with the overhang, someone a little taller than myself would have to tilt their head to actually look out the windows. So that what we're trying to do is get the whole house to feel the same quality, the same grandness that the house deserves. And if we're going to spend that kind of money bringing it back, we thought that they deserve to have an upper floor that felt like it was part of the house. And it's always been developed, at least as far as we know. The staircase has always led to the upper floor. There's always been some form of windows up there, but over the years, that upper floor has been renovated, and we feel that the new design is more in keeping with the design that, actually is enhancing it more than the old roof does.
Thank you, Mr. Collins.
Welcome.
Any other questions?
I'll move the staff recommendation.
Sure, thank you. Moved and seconded. So it's any other, go ahead, Councillor Zelka.
Thank you very much, Chair. I very much appreciate the report, staff report, and also the amount of detail provided by the proponent. I was very pleased to see mayor channel mentioned on, I think even the first diagram. And I had to look up mayor channel, wondering which mayor it's named after. Does the staff possibly know which mayor channel is named after?
Mr. Collins, do you know?
No, I don't, sorry.
Okay.
I will ask someone over on the Heritage Commission. Maybe they would know. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Zelka. Okay, I don't see any other discussion. The only other thing I would just suggest, I don't think it needs maybe it should have a motion, I'm not sure. I guess, on the face of this, we'll get the community feedback on it. These sorts of enhancements to these old homes is welcomed, and we'd like to see the houses stay and have a new life, and frankly, just get updated for modern living and things. So very appreciative of that effort in this case. It'd be nice to just share this story with the Heritage Commission as well, just so they're aware of it, because they get all the negative stories about things getting torn down, and sometimes it's nice to get the stories when they're people are taking the time and effort to enhance and bring up to modern times these old homes. So I don't think it requires a separate base, but maybe we can just share that for information with the Heritage Commission as well, so they're aware. So the motion's on the floor for the recommendation to notice be given. Not seeing any other hands, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. Collins. Thank you for sitting through our early part of the meeting
No
to
problem.
get to your item.
Good.
Anything else?
A point of information.
Go ahead, Councillor Zelka.
Mayor Channel is named after Thomas Harris, the first mayor of Victoria. Thank you.
Wow.
There we go. Mayors of Victoria don't count.
Anyway, good to see you guys again. I haven't seen a lot of you for a while, so thank you, and we'll see you again soon.
That's great. Thank you, Mr. Collins. Up next on the agenda, we have item 7.2. Again, welcome you, Ms. Jensen, on development variance permit for 2576 Margate Avenue.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is a triangular shaped lot that's located at the corner of Margate and Newport Avenues with a laneway that runs along the northeast side of the property. Building permit has recently been issued with a new home under construction on that property. The owners are proposing to access the site directly from the laneway, similar to what they had with the previous home. So there would be no driveway crossing from Margate Avenue. But because of the irregular shape of this lot and the method by which the rear lot line and the related rear yard lot area are calculated through the zoning bylaw, the proposed driveway would not meet the paved surface requirement within the rear yard area. And this is what's necessitating the requested variance. Staff review of the application notes that the irregular shape of the lot does have an impact on the rear yard, as I mentioned, and the paved surface calculations would not be what you would typically see with a standard shaped lot. It's substantially smaller. So how that restricts the rear yard maximum paved surface and the ability to put in a standard size driveway in a location that's just north of the existing driveway. So the streetscape along Margate Avenue would not be impacted by the driveway crossing, and the screening along the laneway helps to mitigate the impact of the driveway installation. So there is some tall cedar hedging that is along that area. So we would be seeing a portion of that cedar hedging being removed to install the driveway, but it's nothing that is identified through the tree protection bylaw. So for council's information, while this application does not trigger a review of the tree canopy cover, with the new building that's being constructed, 2 new trees will be added to the site to achieve a 37% tree canopy cover, and that's exceeding the required 35%. So should council wish to move the application forward, staff would proceed with written notification to all properties within a 50-meter radius, and that would then come back to a subsequent council meeting for consideration of any public input and a final resolution. And I believe we have the applicant Christopher Walker in attendance for any questions that council may have. We are looking for council direction.
Thank you very much. Is that Mr. Walker there? Yes, okay, thanks. You're listed on my screen as item 8.1, so I thought perhaps you're speaking to a different topic. So thank you. Mr. Christopher, we will get, Mr. Walker will get to you if we need to. Council, is there any questions of Mr. Walker or of staff on this application? Don't see any questions at all. Can I have a motion then?
I'll move the motion as staff recommendation, Mr. Mayor.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Any other discussion on this? Go ahead, Councilor Braithwaite.
Normally I don't agree with more paved area, but obviously this is a very interesting. So I don't think there's any issue with this whatsoever.
Thank you. All right, so we'll this passes, then we will see everybody back here in a couple of weeks or so to review and see if there's any public input. Any other discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Opposed? Not opposed. That's great. So that carries. We'll see you in a few weeks, or a couple or more weeks, Mr. Walker. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Item number 7.3, Ms. Jensen, this is development variance permit for 2507 Wooten Crescent.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the proposed variance here is for a single family home that was constructed in 2019, which is sited on a lot along the south side of Wooten Crescent. The property itself is surrounded by single family homes with the exception of multifamily buildings that are located on the lots to the south. The home itself was constructed through an active building permit. However, due to a construction error, the building itself was constructed on the original plans that were submitted And these were not the plans that were approved by the district. It was a previous set. So this has resulted in a portion of the second story of the home that does not meet the required 3-meter setback along the west side of the home. So in November of last year, the non-conforming second story setback was presented to the Board of Variance for their consideration. The board, however, did determine that the works had impacts that would not warrant them approving the application as per the legislation under which they operate. So the board provided a decision to deny the application, and that is why the applicant is now asking for council consideration through the separate development variance permit process. So staff have reviewed the application with respect to the building and the site characteristic and its fit within the neighborhood. The majority of the area requiring the variance, so the second story of the building, is weighted towards the front of the home where it would have a larger impact on the streetscape. With an average lot size, the second story encroachment does have some impact on the adjacent neighbor, but this is mitigated by some of the landscaping, including a large Douglas fir tree that borders the streetscape and creates a privacy screen between the two properties. The nonconformity is much less at the rear of the home and would have little to no impact on the multifamily buildings to the south. So as with the previous applications, should council wish to move the application forward, staff would proceed with written notification of the development variance application to all properties within a 50-meter radius, and then subsequently come back to council for consideration of any public input and a final resolution. And I do believe we have the applicant in attendance as well for any questions that council may have, looking for council direction.
Yes, I believe we have Mr. Thompson, who is the property owner, here with us tonight as well to answer any questions. I have a couple of hands raised by council, so I will go to Councillor Patterson, then Councillor Zelka.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And just for clarification, then the variance, the amount that the width of the home has been increased, then it runs though consistently that amount from the front of the home to the rear of the home. Is that correct?
Ms. Jensen?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just pulling up this information here. So the way it's aligned on the site, the second story setback, actually more of a variance needed at the front of the home as compared to the back of the home. So if I could refer you to page 3 of the staff report, we're looking at roughly 1.5 meters to 2.49 meters from the property line. So there is more of a variance required at the front of the property, and then it tapers off as you go towards the rear of the home.
Thank you. Anything else, Councillor Patterson? Councillor Zelka?
Oh, that's fine, thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I read through the minutes of the Board of Variance, and I note that unanimously they voted to deny, or that the motion failed. And I'm quite reluctant to go against the Board of Variance. I think their rationale is quite sound. One thing that would help me, however, is to know the floor area ratio of the building as built, and what the floor area ratio would be with the as designed, I guess. Could staff possibly provide that? Unfortunately, the construction drawings here don't provide FAR.
Thank you, Councillor Zelka. Good staff do that. Also, we have a dial-in caller that's called in. It's not muted, so we're getting some background noise. If we could just have that muted at the time. Ms. Jensen?
Thank you, Your Worship. No, I apologize. I don't have that information in front of me. We could certainly get that for council. But there is the zoning bylaw does set a maximum floor area 0.4 for development on the site. In its current context, it still meets that floor area.
Useful to know. Thank you very much. Another question is this building subject to an occupancy permit? And if so, how did they get it since they're out of since their permit is not as built?
Ms. Jensen?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to Councillor Zelka, we have not granted an occupancy permit at this time.
Thank you very much. Next question is, I understand Oak Bay Building Inspections does, if I remember correctly, 5 inspections during construction, in terms of rough-in, plumbing, electrical, those sorts of things. A question is, how did this get missed during all those various inspections? If it's possible to understand I think you referred to it as a construction error.
Ms. Jensen, do you have those details?
Thank you, Your Worship. I can certainly provide you some detail. Councillor Zelka is correct. There are a number of different inspections that take place through the course of construction. One of those is essentially a mid-frame inspection. And at that time, we have identified through the process that there was an error with the second story setback. So we do have, I am aware that the building inspectors were consulting with the property owner at several steps through the process, which is why the applicant undertook steps to go to the Board of Variance.
Thank you. So it sounds like the proponent knew there was an error during construction, and it appears that they've completed the building at this point. Okay, so the last question that I want to ask is, I understand.
Zelka, do you want to ask the question of the owner is in the meeting today? If you want to ask the owner the question, you're more than welcome to do so. You don't have to.
No, knowing what buildings and inspections did is good enough for me. Thank you. Someone else can ask. The last question I wanted to ask, however, regarding staff is, I understand other local authorities with respect to their modernizing of their zoning bylaws, they have removed the ability to override Board of Variance, but appears our zoning bylaw still allows this. Does staff anticipate, and this might be, I don't mean to be hypothetical, but I do want to know, is this an old-fashioned thing that we just haven't updated yet? Or is this something that staff is intending on changing in terms of a possible override of
Sure.
Board of Variance?
I'll go to Mr. Anderson on that one. I don't, Mr. Anderson, is there any best practices attached to this that we should be aware of?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. No, the legislation allows for Board of Variance consideration, but it also allows for a municipality through development variance permit to consider such a request. There's no, the legislation allows for this, so it's not old-fashioned that Oak Bay considers these items as part of a development variance permit. They can be considered as a Board of Variance. This is not an appeal of a Board of Variance decision. A Board of Variance decision is separate and its own decision. This is just another opportunity for an owner or applicant to have consideration given to a variance request. Hope that's helpful.
Thank you. End of my questions for now.
Thank you. I'll go to Councillor Braithwaite.
Thank you. I'm going on what Councillor Zelka was stating in regards to that the proponent was aware of the misstep in the building. I would like to ask the owner if they were aware, because what I'm hearing is that staff is saying, or the report is saying that they were aware. And so I'd like to hear from the proponent whether or not they feel they were aware or not.
Yeah, I think that's very appropriate to give the owner the opportunity to address council and to answer those questions. Mr. Thompson, if you could just state your name for the record, the municipality of residence, and perhaps in addition to the questions that were asked already, if you could also maybe just touch on the rationale for the appeal to council as opposed to the appeal that was made through the Board of Variance, what differences there are between the two asks here, if any. So welcome, Mr. Thompson.
Hi, I'm Scott Thompson. Yeah, so I wasn't aware of the error till the final. Like, I was getting the occupancy permit, and it was caught at that point. So the house was finished before Oak Bay caught the problem. So it was Renee caught it on the last final inspection with I guess he went back to the the plot lines at that point, right? But to my knowledge is that they it was my mistake because my surveyor made the mistake and put it on the old plan, but the staff goes through and sees the pegs that they come out and see the pegs at that point too. So it's not just at the mid time, and they've seen it 4 or 5 times before thing. And it, to be honest, got caught when I was moving in a week. So, at that point, to be honest, I was flabbergasted at that point. And so, that's why, I brought it to, and I think Graham, who was the previous planner, told me to go through the other variants first because he thought it was hardship. And so the council, or that council ruled on that it was hardship, but they said their mandate or legal thing couldn't allow them to prove that the bylaw that I was asking to change was not hardship. So that wasn't causing the hardship. So it wasn't a decision on what I'd done. It was the decision that the bylaw didn't cause hardship. So that's what they didn't rule on, is what when I was there at the council, is what they told me.
Just for clarity, Mr. Thompson, it was the Board of Variance, which is separate from council.
Oh,
So,
sorry.
yeah.
I'm sorry. It was the Board of Variance. Yes. Yeah. And so, to be honest, and the house, I didn't do it as it's my mistake as well. And there's, mistakes on all sides. And, but, if I could have stopped it, I would have. And I changed the plans right away when there was a problem, and it was the mistake of the surveyor and not being caught. Right. So, yeah. So at that point.
If I might,
Go ahead, Councilor Braithwaite.
thank you. I guess I'm having real difficulty with this one. And I guess the reason why is that I wonder at having a house built and knowing that how wide the house is supposed to be. As the owner of the house, I might be more inclined to be paying close attention. So I do kind of side with the Board of Variance on this one. And especially because I understand there's a tree on that side of the house that right now is helping to screen the property next to it. But if anything ever happened to that tree, then this side of the house would actually be very, very close to the other property, and then it might become more of an issue. So I do have a bit of an issue with this. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what other people say, but I am right now inclined to side with the Board of Variance on this one.
Thank you, Councilor Braithwaite. Mr. Thompson, can I ask you just for a little clarification?
Sure.
Because I'm not entirely clear on this series of events. There was original set of plans that went in that had too wide, and then they were fixed to address the issue of the second story setback, but then the wrong plans were used for the building of the building. Is that how this all played out?
Yeah, so unfortunately, so what happened is we originally did, in speaking of, for the thing, the Gary Oak in the front is on that right-hand side of the property, and it's on the municipality, and it's a huge Gary Oak. And so we put the house to allow for the Gary Oak to be in the front, right? And not touch the canopy or whatever. And then what we thought that the house met the standards because it was of course 5 and 15 from the side widths. So, and we didn't build the house to max out the lot or any of that stuff. We just built a nice family size house, right? So, and then so the setback, because it was a straight up, it didn't have that 5 feet setback. We moved the house back into the angle of to fit the variance, and then it got approved. And then when my framer and my surveyors missed it, and then it just sort of went along. It, like, at that point is when it could have got caught, and I guess then that's why Oak Bay missed it as well, because they came out, and I was there when Renee came out and he waved to me and said, "Oh yeah, everything looks good." And then that's at the peg point. So I would have changed it, of course, like it's not a problem to have changed it, right? Like it's just a mistake. And now it's a problem, right? Like that's, and obviously, and I get that everybody doesn't like that it's a thing, but I can't, the deconstructing of the house is crazy costs. And it says right in the staff thing that it has no impact on the neighbors, right? Like, and it's minimal, and sorry, I got a couple notes here. It's minimal. It's mostly mitigated by the canopy, like the tree, the mature tree. So it's really not going anywhere. I don't know what else to say. I think,
Okay.
I think
no, it's fine. This is the point of this is to have some deliberation on this. So
yeah, okay.
let's continue the conversation here. Go ahead, Councillor Patterson, then Councillor Nay.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you, probably I would think to the owner of the house. I understand what is being relayed. I have difficulty with this one. I understand the inspectors for the district do go out and inspect, but they're not the surveyors, and so their inspections are often looking for different things and not the accuracy of the surveying. But at that front corner of the house where the extension is the most outside of what it would have been otherwise, what's the programming interior of that space? What is the room inside that front west corner?
That's a master bedroom.
So would not a 5-foot difference have been noticeable in a master bedroom, probably with an ensuite, I'm assuming?
Well, yeah, we weren't making it smaller. We were just because we didn't build the lot to the maximum. We were able to move it over without any problem, right? So that wasn't even a consideration, because it wasn't building a smaller room there. That's not what the thinking was. It was that we can just move it over, shift the house, and it would fit the bylaws, right? So it wasn't to get bigger or to get more room.
I guess my thought on this, Mayor, is that if the first drawings that were submitted were actually noted by our planning department to exceed the zoning, then the programming within that room when the new drawings were done should have changed and had revised dimensions on them. So based on that, I understand that a series of mistakes were made. However,
we didn't change anything. We shifted, so that at no time were we out
Mr.
of
Thompson.
the thing. Yeah,
Mr. Thompson, I'm just going to ask, just as we are in a formal meeting here, I'll call on you, and I'm happy to give you ample time to speak. I just don't want us to interrupt each other on this one. Sorry about that. Go ahead, Councillor Patterson.
So I think that I think our district staff did note the first drawings that they did not comply with the zoning, and made the request that new drawings be done. Those were done, but they were not followed. And so I have difficulty supporting this request, because I do think that it's not a minor variance, and it does defeat the intent of our bylaw, which is really to retain openness between the buildings. So I have difficulty with this, and I think that our Board of Variance did a fairly thorough review on this with their opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. I have Councillor Nay and then Green.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. To staff, I just was trying to understand, this is a fairly large lot, 8,500 square feet. I'm wondering if you could help me understand. I know Councillor Zelka asked what the FAR was, but if you could help me understand in another metric, the total square footage of the dwelling compared to what they could have built given the square footage of the property. Could you help me understand the difference in those two numbers?
Ms. Jensen, do you have a sense of the house size? I don't want you to guess on this one. I think if that's an important piece of information for council, we're better to refer this back to staff and get that information and come to a future meeting than we are to have any kind of sense of guessing. So, Ms. Jensen, do you have the information?
Your worship, I could certainly go into the files and track down that number for you, but it would take me a few minutes to do that.
If you're amenable, why don't you do that, and we'll try and just go through some of the other discussion here at council while you do that, and then that'd be ideal if we can have that information at hand.
So I'll let it go on to another councillor, Mr. Mayor, but the logic I'm trying to use is I appreciate the opinion of the Board of Variance. They acknowledged there was hardship, but that it didn't comply. And that's obvious. I was interested in the perspective of staff who have described how the building, how the overbuild on that side, the exceeding of the variance, it's mitigated by the placement at the front of the property, the streetscape, and the greenery that's there, and that they say it really still does comply in spirit with the zoning. So for me, I walk by that property an awful lot, I would never ever have noticed that it looks out of keeping personally. And as far as whose fault it was, I can't make sense of this from what I hear. It just sounds like a horrible mistake. Maybe 2 times over, I'm not sure, but I write it off as a mistake. So the logic I'm using on this is that it's a large lot. I would like the massing doesn't look excessive. I don't have a sense it's infringing on the property to the west in any way, certainly not to the east, but there's no problem on that side. And I would like to understand the total massing that this house could have been built out to and what that difference is in terms of what it was built out to understand that difference.
Okay.
That would be important for my thinking.
So Ms. Jensen will come back with that information. I have Councillor Green next.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Following on some of the other comments from colleagues, first of all, I'm concerned about the integrity of the Board of Variance and their decision-making process. So for me, that's a priority. I think it's an important thing to be aware of. And secondly, if we took this through a logical conclusion, it begs the question, why do we enforce our bylaws and why do we do building inspections and why do we submit plans? We do that so that people will comply to our various requirements. If we set a precedent around letting something go through that, and granted, I have empathy for the owner, there will be hardship, but I guess my feeling is that we should not set a precedent like this on this particular application, and that I think for me, I would like to respect the decision of the Board of Variance, who take their work very seriously. And in Oak Bay, they don't meet a lot and regularly. So when they do make a decision, I think we need to be respectful of that decision and take notice. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Councillor Appleton.
Thank you, Your Worship. And in a similar vein to Councillor Green, I have issues with the process here. I guess I may be being overly simplistic, but it seems clear that the problem began with the builder failing to use the proper set of plans, that there was a revised set of plans that was issued. I don't think that it's an unreasonable expectation on behalf of the district and the building and planning department to expect that plans, even if revised, are followed accurately by the builder. And I think that in the vast majority of cases they are. I think that the risk that we run by setting aside or not following the direction of the Board of Variance and allowing for these types of errors in building that seem to have been derived from not following the proper materials. This will put council in a repeated position of having to have this exact discussion, where if we're not going to follow the direction of the Board of Variance, and if we're going to accept that plans that were approved by the district were not followed, then council will be in a repeated position of having to adjudicate the relative fairness or unfairness of a variance, or the relative impact or not impact. And that, frankly, is what our bylaw standards are for, and that's what the zoning and associated building specifications are for. So I'm not really willing to look at a variance in this case, mostly because it will, I do believe it will set a precedent in that we will be forced into a position of having to consider the relative merits of minor or not so minor variances in the future. And again, that's what the Board of Variance is ably positioned to do. So thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Appleton. Ms. Jensen, you're back again, it looks like.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Roughly speaking, to Councillor Nay's question, what has been constructed on the site as compared to what they could build on the site is about a difference of 845 to 850 square feet. So that the house as constructed is just over 2,500 square feet. They could build roughly just under 3,400 square feet on a lot of that size.
Thank you. Thank you for getting that information, Ms. Jensen. We had two councillors who wanted that for consideration of the decision making. So I do appreciate you going and getting that. Councillor Green, your hand is officially still up. So did you wish to speak, or is that just a leftover from earlier? Leftover from earlier?
It was leftover, sorry.
Okay. No worries. Just abundance of caution here. Go ahead, Councillor Nay.
Through you, Mayor, to staff, just a quick question on the decision making of the Board of Variance to you, staff. Ms. Jensen, so I know that in the Board of Variance report, they did acknowledge hardship, but in their assessment, contrary to staff report, they felt the second story setback did have impacts on the enjoyment of the adjacent land. I'm just wondering if you could help me understand how the decision-making for the Board of Variance weighs up an acknowledgement of hardship next to impact on a setback as such.
Thank you, Councillor Nay, and probably not a bad time for a little reminder of the constraints of a Board of Variance, Ms. Jensen, if you're prepared to answer.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. You are correct. There's legislation through the Local Government Act. There's 2 or 3 different sections that speak directly to the Board of Variance and how they can consider an application. One of those is determining whether they consider a hardship to exist. And then there is a set of criteria against they can weigh their decision. For example, the use and enjoyment of adjacent land. Are there any environmental impacts to the site? So there's a set of about 5 criteria that the Board of Variance can take a look at. Further to that, in terms of the hardship piece, in this particular case, they did identify that yes, there was hardship as part of this process. And if memory serves, I believe a lot of that was around the fact that this was a building that's already constructed. And so the economic, the financial hardship of having to reorient the building or set back the second story setback. So they did determine that there was hardship, but then they also determined that there was, in fact, a negative impact on the use and enjoyment of adjacent land. And that was speaking to the neighbor directly to the west, where this variance is impacting that adjacent lot. And so in that respect, they made a determination based on the criteria that they can work within, that they could not approve the application. So unlike Counsel, that there's very specific criteria around what they can and cannot consider at a board of variance, including whether it's considered minor or what the hardship is. And unfortunately, those are not defined. It comes more through case law over the years as to what that might look like.
And just one other question. Has there been any feedback or concern expressed by the neighbor on the westward side about the variance?
There's been no formal process until now for that, for a notification to go out, but Ms. Jensen, has anything informally come to staff on this?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Through this process, through this application, we've not heard anything from the neighbor, but I am not, I could not say whether they're actually aware of the application or not. We would definitely be notifying them if council wanted to go that direction to just determine whether they had any input.
So how would that process, let's say, hypothetically, if the council were to approve this variant, what would happen? Would there be a notification that would go out to the neighbors?
Sure, I'll give a quick summary of that. So yes, thank you, Councillor Nate. Again, this is under a new procedures bylaw. This is here in front of us now. The recommendation or the option is either to decline or give notice, and the giving notice would give the official notification to the 50 meters of neighbors of the application, and that would come back to a future council meeting.
Okay, I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nate. Councillor Zelka.
Oh, thank you very much, Chair. Sorry, I thought there were other people ahead of me. With respect to the Board of Variance, I understand they received no letters in favor and 2 letters were in opposition. It appears that Deborah Jensen was the secretary who advised on the 2 letters in opposition. Is it possible that she could let us know the addresses, at least, of those 2 letters? It looks like one of them is from the property next door.
Ms. Jensen, do you have that information available to you at hand? And I'll just ask that we try and keep our questions specifically to the things that would help with the decision. I think your point, Councillor Zelka, is that we may already have some feedback from the adjacent neighbor in this case. Ms. Jensen?
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, I could go into the files and have, but if memory serves, they were both coming from properties to the south.
Thank you. The next question I'd like to add is the tree at the front in the staff report. The way the angle is taken, the photograph in the staff report implies that there is greenery all the way to the back. But when I visited the property earlier on today, I was as I walked up on the property, it appears to me that there is no greenery behind this rather small and narrow pole-like tree at the front. And the impression I was left with was that this property is overhanging in some ways the property next door. But your report makes reference to some sort of greenery. If you could please elaborate, because I didn't see any. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Zelka. I don't know. There's just the one reference in the report, I think, to the one tree there. But Ms. Jensen, is there any other foliage of note between the 2 properties?
Thank you, Your Worship. I would suggest if council's looking for specifics on what landscaping is in place, it might be better to ask the property owner about what they put in place or whether there's any additional landscaping they're planning on doing. From a staff perspective, there are absolutely some larger trees up at the front. There's also some existing vegetation at the very rear of the property or on the adjacent neighbor property as well. So there is some vegetation in place.
ahead.
Last question, if I may. With only apparently 1.58 meters or maybe less at the property, at the foundation, I'm not quite sure what it is at the foundation because the full building aspects are not provided here. This almost would be a question for an arborist. Is there room to put any further trees or tall shrubbery between the two buildings? And I can't tell. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't
I'm
think
wondering
that's
if would
an
staff be able
answerable
to comment
question.
on that?
I don't know, Ms. Jensen, are you comfortable answering that question? It seems a question probably more for someone with a green thumb as to what could or could not be planted there.
Yes, I would suggest that I do not have a green thumb, so
Okay.
to speak to our arborist.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Braithwaite and then Nay.
Thank you. I just again, I just need clarification on this. And so probably this is a question to Ms. Jensen. Ms. Jensen, when I'm looking at that picture that Councillor Zelka was just referring to, and there's a red square around the second story encroachment. Just to be clear, that piece of the house was not approved in the final drawings that were put before staff. Is that correct?
Ms. Jensen?
Thank you, Your Worship. It's through to Councillor Braithwaite. So that diagram is just intended to show you that area of the house that is not within the required 3-meter setback area. So it's actually encroaching into that 3 meters. And it does taper off as you get further towards the rear of the house. In terms of not being on the plans, to the owner's comments earlier on, there was room to shift it on the site. And so it wasn't necessarily a redesign of that area, but they could move it elsewhere on the site and they would have met that 3-meter setback. So those are some of the pieces that were identified with the original set of plans and not on, or a revised set is what was approved.
Okay, thank you. That helps. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Braithwaite. I don't see other hands up here. Before I get to motions, the motions help clarify these discussions. I do want to go back to the owner, Mr. Thompson. Is there anything here that you would like to add prior to our discussion here?
I think that the one thing that I want to point out is that staff recommended that I do the Board of Variance first, right? And I think that everybody's sticking on that because they thought it would go through in that way. And so everybody's going, and I don't think that the staff could recommend anything with the Board of Variance, right? So when the staff is recommending for the proposal, I think that, you know, it is a mistake, and it's a mistake on both parts, and we all get that. And just unfortunately, this is not an appeal, right? Like, it's not, this is a new variance, and everybody's looking at what's happened already. But what I was told is this is submitted as a new proposal because the Board of Variance rules in a different way, right? Like,
Mr. Thompson, I will just step in here just so we can be very clear on this. You are absolutely correct. This is not an appeal. Any applicant can apply to the Board of Variance or to Council. Generally speaking, you know, yes, minor hardship ones go to Board of Variance and other ones come to Council. Council has very wide discretion in terms of how we apply variance or not apply them. We can consider a range of issues, much more so than the Board of Variance can. You are correct in that front. I don't think it means we have to ignore their comments or the time they took on it, but you are correct. And just procedurally, we are not looking at an appeal of that. We are looking at this application to Council on its merits. And that's why I gave you the chance at the beginning. And again, now, if there's anything you want to make your case on, this is the chance to do it.
Yeah, no, and I think that, you know, like, my full intention was to have a house that was, you know, in the zoning and all that sort of stuff. And the reality is that, you know, we made a mistake and it wasn't caught, you know, at the time, and I'm a single parent. I've been a resident of Oak Bay for 50 years. I run a business for 40 years in Oak Bay with my family. It wasn't in any intention to, we didn't even build the house out to maximum or any of that sort of stuff. We built it. I'm a single parent. I support my 2 boys in university now. And, the cost of redoing the house is phenomenal and it will ruin me, unfortunately. And so, if I can do anything else to mitigate it, like I can certainly plant trees and do all that sort of stuff to help in the process. There's tons of room out there to plant more. There's tons of trees out there. I'm looking at it right now. There's a apple tree that's on her side that's touching my, and there's the big thing. And and originally thinking of Oak Bay and the canopy and the Gary Oaks, I moved the house towards this side so that we could save the one in the front and not get, cut any branches and do all that. So, unfortunately, and the reality is that it didn't get caught till I was moving in. Right. And so, Caitlin, said that there isn't that much, wrong with the thing. And also the other thing that I read too in the bylaws was that this setback was for multifamilies. It wasn't even done for single families, right? So, like the intention of the first bylaw, which both brought up in the Board of Variance and like Graham brought it up in the Board of Variance, and now Caitlin brought it up, that the intention of this bylaw was for multifamily, not for single families. So, I do understand the mistake and I plead with you to be understanding and move forward and see what what the public says, right? And everybody says they love my house, right? And as it fits in the neighborhood, it's lovely, and I've landscaped it beautifully, right? And so if I need to landscape it more, please tell me and I will, right? Like at that point, right? So I think I'll stop talking because I'm a little bit thing. So
Mr. Thompson, thank you for coming tonight. I certainly appreciate this. Is got to be an incredibly stressful situation for you, and we're heard in the conversation already the many factors to consider in this one. So and I think we'll probably have a few more to go. But so thank you for answering those questions. And just I do want to, I know that was written in the report about the second story setback being more commonly seen on multifamily. It is part of our bylaws and has been forever. And it's there quite intentionally, I believe, to allow for the sense of massing to be reduced and to allow more light into the side yards of our houses. It has the net effect of making the community look a lot greener. So it is there for a reason. I know any other interpretation is there by interpretation, but we can't ignore the fact that it is certainly part of the bylaws for good reason. So I'm going to go in the order I have them on my screen, which is Councillor Ney, Councillor Zelka, then Councillor Green.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make the motion to support the recommendation made by staff.
Okay, so this is to provide notification to neighbors.
Yeah.
Okay. Ney, Zelka, and Green. Is there a seconder?
Well,
don't say seconder. Okay. Little hands don't count. Anything else, Councillor Ney?
No.
Okay. I had done an order, Zelka.
I'd like to move option number 2, that council deny the DVP application DVP 00109.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion on that, Councillor Zelka? Distinguished to add?
I believe the Board of Variance speaks for itself. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Zelka. Councillor Green, anything?
Yes, just quickly, Mayor. My only concern is the nature of some of the comments that the owner was saying, and that was to say that the municipality is equally responsible for the mistake made in this regard. And I think we have to be careful about comments like that. And it's just, in my estimation, that's a misrepresentation. I think we need to correct that for the benefit of the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Thank you. Councillor Nay, you have your hand up still?
Yeah, so I'll be voting against the motion. And a couple of things I just like to say, Mr. Mayor. The first thing I ask is on a variance request like this is what harm could happen here. And I don't agree that this would set a precedent by going against the Board of Variance, because a Board of Variance decision, as I understand it, can never fetter the decision, a future decision of any council. They stand independent and situation specific. So I really am taking this request as a request unto itself and not related to any past or future decisions around providing a variance. I do accept that this is a hardship for the applicant. I can't assess in my mind who's at fault, so that's not for me to make, but it does look like there's been errors. So I do take the point that this could have been built up another 850 square feet, and it wasn't. And so the massing in total on the property is not excessive in any way. And I would have liked to have seen this go out and give any neighbors an opportunity to provide us with feedback. But I do find that the staff opinion is in contradiction to the Board of Variance opinion around the impact on the westward neighbor. Staff's report suggests that it's minimal. It is primarily at the front of the property, and it only goes down about 10 feet on the west side of that property, and it doesn't in the back, which is the place where people are more likely to be outside on the other property should that ever be built out. So I agree with the staff report that the impact on the westward neighbor is minimal, and at this point this is highly mitigated by the tree. And I do want to give credit to the property owner who also preserved trees, and he's got a 54% coverage, lot coverage, and shows that he was respecting the nature of that property, both by building down and preserving the trees. And he's well over almost 20% over the target of the tree coverage. So I don't see any harm at all to this property owner, particularly given the hardship that the applicant's undergoing. So I'll be voting against this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Nay. Councillor Braithwaite.
Thank you, Mayor. And I do appreciate the comments that Councillor Nay has made, and I also appreciate the proponent speaking so well in regards to his position on this. I think how I look at this is that I wonder, people say there's not a lot of impact. There is impact. If every single person did this, there's an impact. And so where do we actually draw the line? And it goes to what one of the other councillors had said, in that, we have to follow the rules that we have in place. Now, what I would say to the proponent is, I'm hoping that you'll be able to go, if this vote goes the way I think it's probably going to go, I'm hoping that you're going to be able to go back to your builder and have your builder bear the brunt of having to make the changes to your property, because I think that's where the fault lies. I do really feel for you, and I wish I could vote differently, but I have to vote in favor of the motion that's on the table, because I believe that that if I don't, then that opens the door to other things in the future that will come forward, and I think we have to stand behind our Board of Variance.
Thank you, Councillor Braithwaite. Mr. Thompson, the chance here for input is over at this point. We have a live motion on the floor, so I can't take in more at this point. But we still have room here for debate, and we will listen to each other quite carefully on this. Go ahead, Councillor Appleton.
Thank you, Your Worship. So speaking in favor of the motion, and it brings me no pleasure to do so. But along the same lines as Councillor Braithwaite, I'm afraid I take a relatively simplistic and narrow view of this, in that I'm not sure how I would be able to explain to other community members or other builders how the failure to follow the proper set of plans, which seems to be agreed upon as was the genesis of this issue, that there was a revised set of plans that was the approved set of plans that was not followed, which through whatever process was intervening then landed with the need of a variance. I would have a hard time explaining to the community how that was equitable and justifiable. That failure to follow the approved set of plans, became then it became in council's hands to approve a variance. Again, it speaks to, and I am very empathetic towards the landowner in this case, but I think in a way that supports my point, in that I do not think that in the future council wants to be in this position repeatedly, to be essentially adjudicating the relative merits of the relative impact of a variance, which is exactly what we're doing right now. And I would prefer to not be in that situation in the future. So in as much as the impact can be debated, my decision making is based on the strict applicability of bylaws and being able to justify the process that we have in place. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Appleton. Councillor Green.
Yes, thank you. And I'll be very brief. I will be supporting this motion. And I too feel great empathy for the owner. I am sorry that this has happened. I do appreciate that he came to speak to us tonight and expressed his opinions honestly and openly. But I agree with my other colleagues that support this motion. If we abandoned our process for land use in this community, and try to, as Councillor Appleton has pointed out, try to adjudicate every mistake, it would be a really poor model, and it would be very difficult both for all of us and for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Seeing no other speakers on the motion, I'm going to speak. It's an interesting one to me. I think a really strong case has honestly been made on both sides of this. I ultimately fall down on the side of against the motion as it's made. I think that this has enough mitigating factors to me to send it out to the public for input. I think that I am quite nervous about the oops, I made a mistake approach to development where people, overbuild and then come and ask for forgiveness after the fact. We've seen it before. And for the most part, we've been very firm on not allowing that to be approved. My mitigating factors on this one are the house itself is not overbuilt. It's built at a scale that's quite respectful of that neighborhood and of the community. And I do believe it was a genuine error. The house was cited through an error process, and the cost of fixing is potentially very, very large. And I appreciate that is ultimately going to be probably settled between the builder and the owner. But I think that if there's a chance for it to be resolved within the community, I think I would feel more comfortable having that discussion. That being said, I fully respect the comments that have been made. I think that the case made here to be clean and clear in our bylaws is a really fair one at the end of the day. I just, for me personally, I tend to fall down on the other side of that barrier, but I think this is a wisdom of Solomon type of situation where there's extenuating circumstances and cases on both sides of that. But I will be voting in opposition to this just for those reasons. So any other discussion on this point before we call the question? So the motion on the floor is to option number 2, which is to decline.
Can I just say one thing?
You actually can't speak at this point, Mr. Thompson. I'm sorry. We have a live motion on the floor, and we are sitting as a body of government at this point. So
I just wanted to point out that I am the builder. So it's a homeowner builder.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. That actually is helpful. Is there any other discussion on this before I call the question? Seeing none, all those in favor? And those opposed? Councillor Nay and Mayor Murdoch opposed. That carries. Thank you, everybody. That was, I think, one of the harder ones that we've had to face, and one with there's no winners in either scenario. So I And thank you again to the owner for coming forward on that one. We'll move on now to the next item on the agenda, which is item number 7.4, which is bylaw number 4777. And Ms. Varela, I'm going to get you to provide an introduction on this.
Thank you, Your Worship. There's two changes to the proposed bylaw, excuse me, before council tonight. One was an error, an administrative error with the date. So we wanted to change until March 31st, 2022 to August 31st, 2021, and change effective April 1st, 2022 to effective September 1st, 2021. Because we had to fix this administrative error, we're also recommending that clause be removed about delegation of authority. There is a subsequent project coming forward for council's consideration later in the year about delegation of authority. So we'll put all of that in one piece for council's decision making, and you can decide how much, if any, authority to delegate at that time. I hope that helps, Your Worship.
That does. I appreciate the clarification of, because the motion here we've done for second and third reading. So the recommendation here is that the third reading be rescinded, and then that the current have a new third reading and adoption, if that's the will of council. So we have that. Is there any questions of council? Go ahead, Councillor Zelka, and then Councillor Braithwaite.
Thank you so much, Chair. Because we're rescinding third reading and going back to second, does that make this open to public input at that time? So it's a question through you to staff.
Sure, Ms. Williams. Procedurally, this I believe is under our section that allows for public input.
Yes, Your Worship. If we are going back, typically at adoption we don't take public input. But this one, if you are choosing to go back and rescind third, you'll be back at second reading, so it would be open to public input.
Okay, thank you. Just I imagine, Chair, at that point you'll ask for input. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm not seeing any hands. So perhaps we can just put up the numbers on the screen in case anybody wishes to address council on item number 7.4. If you're in the Zoom meeting, you can hit the select at the bottom there, the reactions, and then raise your hand. But if you're calling in, you can just hit *9 to raise your hand, and we'll call you by the phone numbers that are there. So the recommendation is here. I think we can certainly, before we do, procedurally, we can move forward if council's willing to rescind the third reading and go through that process, and then we can get to the body. Councillor Appleton.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would make the motion that third reading of Parks, Recreation and Culture Fees and Charges bylaw number 4777 be rescinded.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Any other discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. Then before we give the second reading as amended, I just want to give a chance for the public, if there is anybody who wishes to speak to us, to have that opportunity. Ms. Williams, has anybody called in or on the Zoom call indicated they wish to speak to us?
Not at this time, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you very much. Then Councillor Zelka, you had your hand raised.
Thank you so much, Chair. The one question I've got through you to staff is to help me understand the delegation aspect. What was delegated and what has been changed so that it's not delegated? I couldn't quite figure that out. Is this related to the old Parks, Rec and Culture Commission, or is this something else? I wasn't sure.
Sure, thank you, Councillor Zelka. I'm not sure if Ms. Varela or if Mr. Meikle or Mr. I'm not sure who else would be would have an answer on this one. I believe Mr. Meikle is still in the meeting. I'll leave it to whatever staff might know the details could provide that information.
Your Worship, it's Ms. Williams here.
Okay.
Unless somebody else wants to jump in, I would graciously step aside.
Is that Mr. Herman on the phone?
Yeah, yes, Your Worship. Can you hear me?
We can, yes. Go ahead if you wish to speak.
Sure. There was a clause in the proposed bylaw that actually dates back to when the fees and charges were presented to the commission. It was always there that indicated that the director had the authority to negotiate or waive fees to the benefit of the district, and that's has typically been used to do things like provide passes to tournament participants, or give refunds to a group who might have been impacted by a power outage, or just things like that come up. But certainly we can work with the timelines that are laid out and the process in terms of putting forward those types of considerations for council to consider later this year as part of an all-encompassing delegation of authority.
Thank you, Mr. Herman. Is that satisfactory, Councilor Zelka?
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have a follow-up question to that then. Is there any risk if that's removed from this bylaw that flexibility isn't retained in the course of this?
Your Worship, I think firstly, during the pandemic, we've received a lot fewer of those types of requests and instances. So that's the first part. Secondly, when they come up, I would talk to Ms. Varela, but I would suspect there might be requests that come to council. So you might see some of those kinds of requests on an agenda. But as I said, during the pandemic, obviously there have not been tournaments and things like that, and rentals have been significantly reduced. So I think the chance of it being an issue over the next few months is not as much as it typically would be.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions before we get to a motion? We'll take a motion then for, go ahead, Councilor Green.
I'll move the motion as indicated.
Okay, just to be, for second reading as amended, is that correct?
Second reading as amended, yes.
Okay. Yep, so just want to make sure we're all clear on this. I'm going to change the dates on Schedule 1 for indoor tennis as follows, and then it reads the dates. Is that's that portion there is we're going to do as one. So
Yes,
it's moved and seconded. And is there any other discussion? Go ahead, Councilor Zelka.
Since you're being so explicit, this will also include the deletion of that 2.3 delegation piece? Or is that a separate motion?
Thank you. I have, I'm running off of my notes here. So let me just pull up the agenda package live. He says, having closed it. So give me a second here to pull it up. I've got too many screens on this side of the table. So
I hear you, because if you might want to be careful about being so explicit that we don't get the clause 2.3 aspect.
Well, I just want to not get the third reading. That's all. That's all my rationale. So.
Your Worship, the motion that we would be looking for is the one that is number 2 in the explanatory note attached on the agenda at page 77.
Yeah. Okay.
So it has three bullet points in it, that one?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. So that's not, yeah, that's fine. It wasn't included in the opening memo piece of the agenda. So that's my confusion, my bad. So the motion then is as reading there is that be given second reading as amend. Okay. So that is, yep. Second as amended, the remove clause 2.3 in its entirety, replace the dates as laid out for the indoor tennis. We're all clear on that? Okay, moved and seconded. Just so we're all very clear. Any other discussion on that piece? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Not opposed. Thank you very much. And then we just need third reading. Someone move third reading, moved and seconded. Thank you. We don't normally do discussion on third reading, but just given changes here, if anybody wishes to, you're more than welcome. But seeing no hands, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Not opposed. Thank you. And then move adoption, please.
Adoption.
Moved and seconded. And don't usually again do debates on adoption, but I'll give people the chance if they wish. Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Not opposed. Thank you very much. On to item number 8. This is again subject to public input. Actually, I guess, yeah, we have under number 8.1, Ms. Jensen. This is for advisory design panel and development variance permit for 3125 Wheeled Road. And we have also, I believe we have Mr. Banks with us as well this evening to address any questions. So this has gone out for public input and come back to us now. Ms. Jensen, welcome back.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, just as a bit of an update. So council saw this proposal at their April 26th meeting, which is a proposal to undertake renovations to the existing home, more specifically renovations to the rear patio, and then a 4.56 meter variance request to the interior side lot line for a garage addition. And that is due to the legal non-conforming siting of the home. So in front of you, you actually have two applications, one for the requested variance through the development variance permit application, and then of siting and design as per the Uplands regulation bylaw. Again, proposed works including renovations to the rear of the home, and then including an expansion of the attached garage. This entire package was considered by the advisory design panel, who recommended that council approve the proposal. So at the April 26th meeting, council directed that staff give notice of its intent to consider the development variance permit application for approval. Notice was mailed out to property owners within a 50-meter radius on May 7th, and we received no correspondence as a result of that notification. And the applications are now in front of council for consideration of approval.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jensen. I just would, anybody watching live, you're more than welcome to call into the meeting. You can call in at the number shown on the screen and just hit *9 to raise your hand if you wish to. This has been in front of council for consideration previously, as noted, and is back here in front of us today. Are there any questions by council for the applicant or to staff? I'm just going to give a moment here for anybody wishing to call in to have that time to be able to do so. And flag, this is a part of the problem with electronic meetings. Everything takes a little bit longer, as we have to give time for people to participate if they wish. I think generally speaking, if people wish to respond on these, they typically email. So I would, if we have had no correspondence, I would not be surprised if nobody wishes to call in on this one either. But I'm just going to give a minute here for it to come. Mr. Banks, I'll just welcome you to the meeting. It's been a long time since we've seen your face as a designer bringing something to council. So nice to have you here this evening. It doesn't look like we have any questions for you though. So limited opportunities to speak, but if you wish to say anything, you're more than welcome to do so before I go back to council and get a motion. You're muted if you are speaking.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Your Worship, for the opportunity to be here and sit in on the meeting. I'm here to answer questions, and if there are none, I'm happy.
Okay, thank you. You've helped me fill the time. I just wanted to make sure that we had enough time for people to call us if they had any input. Ms. Williams, has anybody called into the meeting and indicated their wish to speak?
No, Your Worship, nobody at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. So back to council then, seeing no questions. Is there?
I'll move that development variance permit DVP 00087 to undertake renovations to a single family home at 3125 Wheeled Road be approved.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed.
And then I will also move that the Upland Siting and Design application ADP 00103 be approved subject to the issuance of development variance permits DVP 00087.
And seconded. Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Can we just get a motion that we received the report as well?
I'll move receipt of report.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Thank you. So that passes. Mr. Banks, you have worked. Your work is done here, I guess, on this one. So congratulations and thank you for taking care of that beautiful old house.
Thank you very much.
All right, and with that, we have a motion to adjourn.
Move adjournment.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Not opposed. Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening.
Night.
Good night.
Thank you.